My name is Cade, and this is Can You Survive This Podcast. This show is designed to teach you techniques that will increase your chances of survival if you happen to find yourself or your family in any life-threatening disaster scenario imaginable. Each episode will put you smack in the middle of a new disaster scenario as I challenge my guests to see if they have what it takes to get out alive. Knowledge is power, people. Can you survive this podcast? Greetings, my fellow survivors, and welcome to another episode of Can You Survive This Podcast? I'm your host, Cade, and if you can hear my voice, it means you're still alive, and it is my mission to keep it that way. Folks, very excited about today's guest. Many of you have heard the story, you've seen him interviewed, you've probably seen the movie named after him and his experience. Today we have Captain Rich Phillips, the famous captain of the Maersk Alabama, born in Winchester, Massachusetts, attended the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, but decided to transfer to the Massachusetts Maritime Academy. Captain Rich Phillips, welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. Just to give some input to it, I didn't transfer from UMass. I went to UMass, had a great time. Would love to go back, but I wasn't too focused. I had a focus problem, and so I took 2 years off. I did a few different jobs. I was a bank driver. I was a taxi driver. I taught schizophrenic kids, and that's how I actually found myself serendipitous into the Merchant Marine. But no, I had a good year off from UMass. I got serious, and I found something I was interested in. That's what brought me to Mass Maritime.
So you're saying your first year in college as a freshman, you had a little bit too much fun. Nobody ever does that.
Well, I never did a full year. I did 6 months. And since I was paying for it, I went to the dean and said, hey, I want to quit. I want my money back. And that's where I learned what per diem means. And I said, well, how much can you give me? And they said, we'll give you this much back. And I said, well, heck, I got my own room. I got a single. It's a great party place, UMass Amherst. So I just said, I'm going to stay. But I just didn't go to school anymore. I knew I was leaving. Come Christmas, I was gone, but I was going to enjoy it.
No, it sounds like my first semester, I spent a little bit more time working on my liver than on my studies, but it is what it is, right? Did you
Yeah.
Did you always well, I guess I should ask you, when was the first time you were on a boat? Can you remember?
Well, a boat, not being a ship. I mean, I always
Correct.
rowboats, canoes, sailboats, of course, all that. If I was lucky enough to know someone who had a motorboat, that was always a pleasure. But it really wasn't until after my first year at Mass Maritime. It's kind of tough. It's a quasi-military school, and not like what you went through, but, uniforms, marching, all the rinky-dink Mickey Mouse things, I call it, to try and mold you. And I had a hard time. I had a lot of demerits. I didn't go home till Thanksgiving. They had to let me home. When I went to school, we went in August. So I had a little time with following orders. I had a little time with just being serious and focused. But after I went to sea that first time, within, I'd say, less than 2 days, once I was on the ship, every summer we would go on a 70-day cruise. Once I got on that, I said, wow, this is what I want to do. And I was focused from then on. I never had another problem.
Oh, that's outstanding. My first year in the Navy, I was a surface warfare officer, and I was always curious, what's the difference in sort of the command structure or even the environment, you think, between a naval vessel in the military and being on a maritime ship like you were and your job? I imagine it was probably a little bit more lax, but definitely not less professional.
Very much more relaxed. No real uniforms. We have minimal people. I've sailed on ships from anywhere from 13 to when I started as a third mate back in 79. It was I sailed on ships with 44 people. So it's a different amount of people that you have sailing on the ships, and so it's a lot more relaxed. Our language is quite similar. Our nomenclature exactly the same. But it's more or less we have less people, on the ship to do the jobs. Of course, your mission is a lot different from us. We have to move cargo back and forth. That's our priority. And for the Navy, their mission is in military and warfare. So they have to have that redundancy. And it's one thing I'm proud of. The Merchant Marine carries 85 to 90% of the military's cargo. We carry it for them because we can do it faster, cheaper. We can really support our military, which I really enjoyed, and I had a lot of contacts in the military when I sailed in the Merchant Marine.
You cruised on some of the biggest ships in the world, but you were talking about crews of 14, 20, 21. Understand the mission was definitely different, but is there just a ton of automation on those large ships?
There is automation, but I think one thing anything with automation, when you really need it, it's probably not going to work. In emergency type situations, you don't always have power. So all those things that we're now relying on, sometimes too much, once you take the power out of it, sometimes we're pretty helpless. We've sort of lost that ability to, go without. And I think that's what a real sailor is indicative of. You lose power, we go to the next thing, we go back to the magnetic compass, we go back to the stars, we watch the weather. So the automation, yes, which is, I'm sure you believe it isn't always the best thing. I think we really got to have our abilities, before we get to that automation and we start relying on computers and mechanical things.
When I was a platoon commander at SEAL Team 1, my guys, they used to get upset with me. Hey, why are we using compasses? Why are we using pace counts? And I said, because if it takes a battery, it's going to take a shit exactly when you need it, just like you're discussing.
Yeah, and I was lucky. I actually sailed with some pretty old school type people. I consider myself old school because that's where I learned. And I had captains who would shut the stuff off just so we would practice. I mean, when I first started sailing, we always took sights, and it was try to beat that GPS. I mean, the beginning, the navigation sometimes would spit out of position every 7 hours. We would look at that like an altar and, oh my God, when's it going to come? It's coming in 35 minutes. Well, you don't have to wait 35 minutes, and that's one thing I enjoyed. I sail with a lot of old school captains who really knew the importance. And when things are tough, you can't go the easy way. It's got to be the basic old way, hard way.
Can you still use a sextant with any accuracy, you think?
Right now, I'll be honest. As a captain, I didn't use a sextant. I would ask my people to use a sextant. Not everybody comes aboard with a sextant nowadays.
Right.
In my day, I had sailed with captains who would fire if you didn't have a captain. If you came on with a boom box back in those days, you better have a sextant in the other hand. Because it was required. Now, not so much. But it's just the same thing. If you're relying on something, that means you're dependent on something, and you got to have multiple ways to get out of situations. Can't always do it one way.
Yeah, well, sometimes old ways are the best, right? They're at least reliable.
Yeah.
What was your first command?
My first command was actually on the motor vessel Green Wave, a great ship. I still look back and I learned an awful lot. It was an old type ship. It had cranes on it. So I learned how to drive a crane. I learned how to do a lot of different things. It was multi-purpose, containers, general cargo, break bulk. So I learned to do a lot of things. I started as second mate. I did 6 months, and then as I was lucky enough to have someone who saw something in me, they sort of brought me back. Take your test, raise your license, and they'll bring me back, and that's what happened. And really, the Merchant Marine, that's the way it works. Much like in the Navy, you have a sea daddy who sees something in you. It's nothing I ever really wanted to be as a captain. I never thought about it. I was just there to work. I want to work. So eventually, other people saw things in me, and they sort of sucked me up that ladder, and I was lucky enough to finally get to become a captain.
Now, how long were you in the Merchant Marines before retirement?
I was 35 years in the Merchant Marine, just shy of 25 as a captain.
Oh, that's outstanding. We'll get into the obvious here in a minute, but I was wondering, before the event, the situation on the Maersk Alabama, had you ever been in a life-threatening situation, be it at sea, something random at home? Had you ever sort of been like, I don't know if I'm going to make it through this? What happened?
I've been in a few situations. It's not the first time a gun's been put in my face, to be honest. I've had a few of those.
Sure.
The first time, boy, that pistol looks good. That bullet, that pistol hole shoot is
barrel.
huge. So I've had a couple of those. Not to say it makes you any more comfortable. It
No.
didn't. I was afraid during my whole incident. I was scared. But after a while, once you get a gun in your face, it starts to lose a little cachet if they don't use it. So, you get to become comfortable with uncertainty, I guess.
Well, if they do use it, you're not going to remember it. So
that's right. Yeah, they're only going to use it once, hopefully.
And anybody who says they're comfortable with looking at the wrong end of a barrel, well, they might need some extra help.
Yeah.
So, sir, I would love to get into, and I know you've been through this probably thousands of times, but the day of April 9th, 2009, I believe you were 8 days into your command of the Maersk Alabama. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I joined on March 31st, the morning of March 31st. We sailed later that afternoon to Djibouti. And the initial incident took place on the 7th. We were followed by the 3 boats. And then the incident on the 8th, we were followed by that 1 boat after a strange VHF call the night earlier. That's when about 06:15 we saw a small boat with a high-powered motor 3 miles astern of us.
Well, I'm going to give folks a little bit of background, and we'll roll right back into this. But so, folks, the Maersk Alabama, it's a container ship. It's just over 508 feet long. It's over approximately 83 feet wide, or a beam. Launched in has a top speed in excess of about 18 knots. You had a crew of 21. You had about 17,000 metric tons of cargo. A large portion of that was relief supplies heading to Oman. So no good deed goes unpunished, right?
That's one of the ironies. It was handshake, what we call handshake cargo in the Merchant Marine. It was basically Catholic food, Catholic relief organization, UN food program, and mainly the U.S. food program. And the ultimate destination, ironically, was Somalia for a lot of it.
Which is insane. You're there trying to help. You're bringing supplies to the very country that decided they wanted to board you. And you had this quote before this happened, and you said, in those waters, any blip on the radar screen is a concern. And then you spoke a little bit earlier, you see the blip, and you'd gotten you said you got a radio call. Was that somewhat of a warning from somebody else, someone else at sea saying, hey, we just spotted these guys and they're heading out to sea, or what was that all about?
No, that was actually the night after when we were followed by the 3 boats and we got away. My second mate called me up and said, Captain, you need to come up here. There's something strange on the radio. And I came up and I said, what's up? And he says, it was shortly after I think he took over his watch, maybe 0030, 0100. And he goes, something strange just came over the radio. And all of a sudden it came over again. And it said, Somali pirates coming to get you. Somali pirates coming to get you. And that's what we heard that night. Now, we were going by a fishing boat that was well lit up, which there are fishing boats out there. Unfortunately, they're under worse conditions than we are with the pirates because they're easy to board. And it wasn't normal to have a lit up fishing boat because that just attracts, anything from 20 miles around besides the fish. And so we watched that and we steered away from it. And I stayed up there for about 40 minutes. And then I told the guy, keep watching that light. If that light moves, I want to know. Watch the deck. If a boat comes off that deck, I need to know. Because we knew that was the MO of a pirate attack. So we watched it. Nothing happened. I was up that's a little after 6:30. Was on the bridge having coffee, and at 6:45 was when we saw that small boat, 3.5 miles astern of us. So it was the two different incidents the night before, say maybe 5-6 hours before we saw that pirate boat. And was it that the pirates who attacked me? I don't know, because the leader in the lifeboat told me, oh, we do that all the time when when we're tired or we don't want to do anything, and we like to see the ships all zigzag, turn the lights on, turn the hoses on, and go into their mode. but it's something he said. But he never told me if it was him, that VHF, because with the E layer changing at night, it could have been 200 miles away.
So speaking of that mode, how were you able to evade the previous night's 3 boats that were coming for you? Explain that to folks.
It was in the morning. Yeah. It was basically the true indicator of any successful pirate attack, and that's the weather. The weather was a little rougher. We probably had a 5-6 foot swell running. We had a 15 knot wind, and we were able to just get away from them because they couldn't go through the seas. They would slam, somewhat similar to what you saw in the movie. They would slam. But, as I said, we were actually doing a fire and boat drill that day, and I was on the bridge by myself, and I had noticed a blip just over the horizon, which is a normal procedure for the mothership, which holds it. And then I just happened to look around because he was sort of tailing us on our port quarter. And I looked around and I couldn't see the boats, but I could see bow waves. And maybe it was the wind, maybe it was a boat. So that's when I called up my chief mate and said, continue the drill, but send me, I forget his name, I think it was John. And he was an older Polish guy who had very good eyes. And earlier he said, hey, Captain, there's a ship out there. And I'm looking, where? I don't see a ship. And I have pretty good eyes. And later I saw it. I go, wow, you got really good eyes. So at that moment I said, I want his eyes on these bow waves. So I brought him pirates. Up. It's the pirates. Later we got to see the boats.
All right. So the pirates, their MO was they would put smaller boats, the attacking boats, onto a larger fishing ship. The fishing ship would set up station, would maybe shadow you guys, and then they would decide to launch the smaller pirate attack boats onto your ship. Is that was their way of doing business?
Yeah, and the normal fishing boat will have 1 or 2 small boats to do the fishing. But if you see a boat with 5 or 6 small skiffs trailing behind, or 3 or 4 up on the transom, that's not a good sign. And the fishing boat we saw, it had 2, one on the back, one on the top. So it felt the description of a fishing boat. So even though I'm concerned about it, it seemed to be factual.
All right, so your instincts were kicking in at this point. You're like, that doesn't look right. Let's keep an eye on it. Let's stay aware here. I understand there was another great quote of yours, and I guess there was a notice to mariners that went out saying, hey, if stay at least 600 nautical miles off the Somali coast. And your quote was, you know what? You were quoted saying 300 nautical miles offshore, 600 nautical miles offshore, 1,200 nautical miles offshore. It was a matter of when, not if, which is one of my favorite sayings. I always tell people about survival. It's not if it's going to happen to you, but when. So kind of explain that a little bit about your thought process as far as, hey, this is a dangerous job, period.
Well, I've always considered this a somewhat dangerous job. I tell my crews that it's an inherently dangerous job, much like many other jobs out there, safer than yours, but like many jobs out there, it is a dangerous job. So I would try and get that. And I sailed in that area of the world for 4.5, 5 years, and I'd always told my crews it's a matter of when, not if. So we got to be prepared. And I thought if we had procedures and we had a posture, because basically, to me, it's a bully situation. They think you're unarmed. They think you're an easy target. So we'll make ourselves a harder target. We'll come up with ideas. I would get a lot of ideas from my crew. One of the ideas we had was the frequencies. They may know our frequencies, so we may have to change our radios during an incident. We talked about if you got caught, things not to talk about, things not to say. We talked about getting rid of your keys. If you hear that signal. So in case you get taken, they don't have a key to different areas. Basically, it was the lead officers had the master keys, but that was just some concerns we had. We talked about, getting into our safe room. And there was even a thing put out by the militaries, if you couldn't call the military from a safe room or somewhere and tell them you have all your people together, we're all safe, anybody outside is a bad guy, they said they wouldn't come. So I told my crew, I said, look, I'm calling them. If this happens, I'm telling them everybody's safe. Anybody out there is a bad guy. So if you aren't in the safe room, you got to find a place to hide and stay there. And then we talked about, now don't think it's over. You got to stay there and hide, but you can't come out. You can never come out. We have to find you. And then we talk about if we go through the situation, once everything's controlled, then whoever was the boarding group would then go through the ship completely. And don't come out, don't take cameras, don't yell. Let them find you, and make sure you show your hands. But that's the schedule. Don't come out at any time, no matter what you hear.
Well,
So,
rewind back to you're at the Maritime Academy. Did you train or study any of this? Because right now you're talking about a tactical mindset that you had to assume. You were talking about changing frequencies. You're talking about evasion drills, what to do if and when somebody's on the boat, what to say, what not to say, classic interrogation technique stuff. I mean, did you imagine back in school that this was going to be a major part of your job in the future?
Oh, I think that's the one thing about the Merchant Marine. We have many hats. It's not one physical thing. And believe me, we weren't just concentrated on piracy. For our ship, for that area, we were never outside the piracy area. Yes, it was a high concern for us, but there are also priorities behind that and priorities in front of that we also had to concern ourselves with. So we had to be sort of aware of everything. And that was my intention, was to impressing on my crew, because I usually would. When I boarded the ship, I didn't see the security. I saw it as kind of lax. And I know my chief mate was a good chief mate. And so what you saw in the movie was very close to what happened. I said, let's snap this security up. Let's get back to where we should be. And he's got a million things going on, my chief mate. He's the XO, basically. He really is involved in the day-to-day, the operational things. And he just, I heard it and I understood it, because, we're in the middle of three different things. We got repairs, we're doing cargo, we got medical, we got payoff, we got stores, we got, I know, I understand that. But we got to get back to security. Ships are being taken at the anchor outside. So we can't be ready a day out.
I mean, it goes back to, it's not if it's going to happen to you, but when. So you brought a mindset on where you saw deficiency, and they're like, oh, geez, this new captain, he is a pain in the butt. He wants us running these drills, and he's talking about locking yourselves in and stuff. We got 17,000 tons of this we got to get on board.
I got a job to do.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, it reminds me of some of the guys I used to work with. Why are we doing this? But as the captain of a ship, that's your baby. The crew that's your family. And so I got to ask you, did any of them come up to you afterwards and say, hey, Cap, thanks for making us do those drills. Thanks for making us do that training, because that undoubtedly saved lives.
I would say that. I would expect that. That's my job.
Sure.
So I know they appreciate it. And in my mind, I know I was instrumental, as well as they were, in the positive outcome. So had we not done that drill, I think it would have been a serious change. And like I said, when I did the drill, I've never had a drill go exactly right. Never does. The situations don't go. But when I did that drill, I was able to, because I would do things like, okay, everybody come on out. We're done the drill. We're going to do a critique, because I would always do a critique after my drills, and all my crew know that. So I would just call everybody out, and then I'd go to the place, crew mess, officers mess, and I'd say, okay, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead. Why did you come out? Well, you told us to. I go, we didn't use the non-duress password. I go, this is why we do these things. I mean, and I would also be a pain in the neck, to be a pain in the ass, to be perfectly frank. And when I did these drills on other ships, because I've done them before 9/11, I would go and check the safe room. So I would have my chief mate go around and try and get into the safe room without the password. I have him just try to knock on the door, to have him talk to them. Hey, you guys all right? We don't talk to anybody. We answer the phone. We don't, that's just one of the things I was trying to do. But invariably, at one time I walked in, all my guys were there. Very good. The doors weren't locked. And then I found on the other door, this is a new ship I had just got on. I went to the other door, and I opened that up, and I go, why isn't this door locked? And my crew member said, because the lock's on the other side. And I said, well, who made this the safe room, first of all? And then I said, well, I'm not going to change it. You guys are in this mode. I'm going to keep the mode, but Chief, change this lock right now. And then I went through the procedures. You got to understand, when I came home, a lot of people didn't believe in piracy. It's the Walt Disney, it's the cutlass and swords and the beautiful woman and the Errol Flynn. But it's not. It's just AK-47s, 9mm, hatchets, or whatever. So for me, it was trying to get my crew just to buy into it. A lot of times my crew really didn't believe it. Piracy, that's not going to happen to us. And my thing was just It is going to happen to us. So I would try and really pick them up. Now, I will say after the incident, as I'm sure you've seen, when anybody's been in a extraordinary situation, a dangerous situation, and they did it and they came out right and it all came out right and they did what they're supposed to do in a trying time, boy, that makes you feel good. That really makes you believe you're training. That gives you confidence. So after that, when I went back to shipping, I never had to really pull the guy from the back row who was falling asleep. Everyone was really into it. It's the same as to someone who's been in a fire situation. You don't have to, spoon feed them. They're going to suck that information right out of it because they know that they need it.
Well, absolutely. Look, a few months ago, nobody believed a pandemic would happen, and look at us now. So I love the mindset that you brought to that command. And even though, just the fact that, hey, we're going to train for this, it will happen. And then the attention to detail that you're trying to force on your crew, like, well, the lock's on the wrong side of that hatch. Let's get that fixed, or it's an unsafe room. But explain a little bit more about the drills that you did so people can understand when you were actually confronted with it, how you implemented that as far as, the evasive maneuvering, the water cannons, and I want to get into, firearms a little bit.
Okay. Well, it was the first ship I ever been on that didn't have weapons.
Why is that?
Because we were chartered to Maersk, and they didn't believe in weapons. They came out with a policy, restating their policy of no weapons aboard due to the liability, due to the chance of someone shooting each other, going postal or something. They really weren't for it. My company always had Central Gulf Lines, Waterman Steamship, always had weapons. Sometimes multiple gun lockers, thousands of rounds, and we're trained in small arms, not extensively, but we're able to use them, break them down, clean them, and fire them. And
joining Maersk, did that piss you off? I mean, that had to be sort of like, why the hell not?
All the captains were concerned. I'll tell you, I was in the office. They usually bring in the office, and there were two captains there, two friends of mine who I know, and they want to talk about everything: security, budget, food, medical, injury. They just bring us in to go through the whole spiel, and we were all concerned, with piracy. We knew it was going to happen. We knew it's going to take an American ship, and I think at that time, people just believe, it's a 0.01% chance of an American ship being taken by pirates. The odds, the risk analysis is don't worry about it. And indeed, you got to remember during that time, insurance companies were telling you, don't fight the pirates, don't make them mad. Just do as they say. 3 months later, the money will be dropped and they'll free you. But that's not something I could put up, and that's not something I could have my crew go through. So I just didn't believe in it. A ship is a U.S. Territory. We are U.S. And so I think we have to protect it. And that's one thing we all did. I mean, and we had multiple things. We had axes, we had poles, we had hatchets, we had 40-pound twist locks we could throw down, as well as the hoses. In the movie, they were cannons. These were just hoses that I left in place, valves open. I believe it was 7 of them, and then all you got to do is push the button, the fire pump, and boom.
So that was just basically coming off the ship's fire main, and you just activate.
Right, and so it's basically a posture. We had lights going, whistles blowing, so they knew that we knew where they were, and I said that's a posture. That may be enough to initially send them away, but if not, we'll go to the next step.
So I just want to get this straight. Company policy at the time was no firearms and just do what they tell you to do.
Well, no, the Maersk policy was no firearms, but the insurance companies, the people handling it, some insurance companies, because we got a lot of information put out. we were flooded with things, but that's what they were telling you. Basically, the maritime insurance were just, don't fight them, don't make them mad. 3 months, the money will be dropped and they'll free you. So that was some of the things we were being told on the ship, which I told my crew we weren't doing that.
Well, it's good to hear. We used to have a thing in the SEAL teams. It'd be like, all right, you do your one brief for the bosses, and then you pull the boys in and you tell them how it's really going to go down. So sounds
Yeah.
like there's a little bit of similarity there. I love it.
White hat, blue hat.
Exactly. So the previous day you had, for lack of a better term, repelled or prevented a boarding. So that had to give
They
you
never got to us. They never got closer than I think it was a mile and a half.
So that had to give you some confidence. Like, okay, what we're doing is okay. We can deal with this. Several hours later, these guys are putting a ladder up and they're climbing aboard the Maersk Alabama. Take us from there.
Well, it was, 24 hours later. No, we really felt good. My crew felt good. There was actually jubilation that, hey, these things do work. And during that time, the chief engineer, Mike, and I started working on things. How fast can we go? Because I'm a firm believer in treating everything like a Volkswagen Bug. Don't go fast. Don't slam the brakes. Something's going to happen. So I says, we're going to need to go fast, but I'm going to need you down there to bypass the automation so we don't slow down because we get a differential in our temperatures or heating up of a cylinder. Because if that happens, then we're down to 5 knots automatically. So his job, which he'd get a call before the alarm went. And I says, if you get a call, go. This is what it's about. It's the only time you're going to get a call from me. You need to go to the engine room, get the first, and then if we need to go to alarm station, we'll go to alarm station.
So he's like, hey,
I would
Skipper,
have him down there already.
And you're like, hey, Skipper, we got a high vibration alarm. You're like, I don't care. Override it. We're going full throttle.
No, Mike was very good. I will say, Mike says, you still got more. You still got more. We're good. He really gave me feedback, and we both learned how much we could put on that engine. And we came a little more confident that we could, do a little more than we thought prior to that. So we learned some things from that day before with the 3 boats.
It sounds a little bit like an old Star Trek episode. You had your Scotty down there giving you 115%, but didn't recommend it kind of thing.
No, my chief during the incident was very much, you got more. You can kick it up a little more. Okay, you got a little more. Hold it there. He was going to give me whatever he could give me. He was very well aware, and it's one thing I was lucky. My chief mate, my chief engineer, were very much into the training. A lot of times you get people who don't want to do the training. We'll just gun deck it. But both my chiefs, my chief engineer and my mate, were very much into the training and bought into it and brought the guys along. So I think that was highly indicative of what happened later when I was taken out of the picture. My chief mate basically became the captain and my chief engineer was the second. It allowed them to be in command and do what they did, which made the positive outcome.
On the evasive maneuvers, okay, so you're blazing along, but you've got a cargo ship full of containers. Was there ever a point where, man, if I go a little bit too much rudder at this speed, we run the chance of dumping the containers or this ship dumping over? What was the point where, like, man, I can do this much, but if I do 2 degrees more at this speed, this whole thing's going to be a just train wreck?
Yeah, well, I was never worried about the containers. I was never worried about the cargo.
Sure.
During the whole incident.
I guess I'm asking you that not from the standpoint of containers over crew. That's a no-brainer. But I'm just wondering, with all that weight on that ship and you're doing the evasive maneuvers, did you ever worry about this thing could go over at this speed if I push it too much?
No, it would never turn turtle. But what would happen was by turning anything more than 5 degrees at those highest speeds will automatically increase the temperatures. You'll get a deviation and the automation shuts you down. So I knew that. And that's why I didn't start evasive maneuverings till after they got probably a mile behind us or 9/10 of a mile, because I wanted to maintain as much speed as I can. Once you start maneuvering, you've just lost 2.5 knots.
Exactly.
So now the speed is less. So now you're slower, making it easier to board. So I didn't start the evasive maneuvering until, I'm going to say 9/10 of a mile they were behind us.
Tell me about.
And I wasn't worried about that because I would play with my ship, just to see what it could do. Anchoring, unanchoring, killing time. So I've done that. I've always done that with ships because that's the one thing that we really don't get as you come up from a third mate, second mate, chief mate, is you don't get that ship handling. And so I always felt negligent or deficient. So I'd always take a time to play and see how things work.
I was officer of the deck as a young ensign one night. It was the mid-watch, and the skipper said, hey, do some soundings, which is where every 5 knots you figure out how much noise you're putting out for figuring out sonar issues and detection issues. And I looked over and I was like, I'm never getting a chance to do this again. So I told the helmsman, I go, all the way, go. Full ahead. Let's see how fast this thing can do. So I'm having my own fun at 1 a.m. while the skipper's asleep. And he wakes up and he sees that we're doing 28 knots in his stateroom. That was the last time I got a chance to do that. But fuck it. It was fucking worth it, man. It was so fun. So let's go to the first time you lay eyes face to face with one of these pirates. Tell me a little bit about what's going through your brain.
Well, the first time I really got close enough to even bother seeing their faces was when the guy made it to the bridge.
Right.
And then we were within 3 feet of each other. And it was very, very scary. And I mean, you can see the commitment and the evil doings on his face that I think in the movie, and Tom Hanks in the movie. I think it's one of the true times is you can see his sort of smoke coming out behind his eyes, and he's just sort of wondering, okay, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And that's how it was for me. I was just, okay, we gotta calm things down here. We gotta build a rapport. We gotta get my guys out of here. And my fear was that someone would be killed. And once someone's killed, there's no need to stop. And that's my fear. We gotta keep people from getting hurt, yes, but killed. More importantly, we got to keep them from being killed, and we had to work with the pirates. You had to build some kind of rapport, relationship, just so I could slow everything down, try and figure out ways to try and extricate my crew and myself from that situation.
So you went right into a de-escalation mode. Now, having done some work in that area, and several of my buddies who were there before during what's famously known of as Black Hawk Down, a lot of these folks do something that's called COT. Are you familiar with what COT is? I'm sure you are.
Oh, yes. I sailed in that area of the world for many years. Yeah. So I've seen COT. New York has a flourishing COT trade in New York City.
So basically, for anybody out there that doesn't understand what COT is, it's basically like a really cheap version of crack that a lot of these folks, they'll wake up, they'll do it all day long. They'll be a mess. Do you think these guys were on that stuff when they got on your ship?
They could have been before the incident, but in the lifeboat, I never saw the situation of the COD. I never saw that, which is sort of surprising. Did they eat all they had before? I don't know, but I did not see any use of COD. They were smoking cigarettes when they came on. They did have lighters, but I didn't see any caught. But you can see by the lack of sleep, even though they take turns sleeping, and the stress that I guess just the visible U.S. Navy behind them, you could see that initially they really could care less about the Navy's presence. They knew it was coming. Before they came, they were looking at the skies. They were looking around, waiting for it almost. And initially, when the lights came on, and the PA and the flashing lights, they jumped. But after that, normal routine. We're going back to Somalia. They're not going to do anything, and then we'll wait for the money. So it really wasn't until Saturday that they really started. I could see them starting to get nervous, hinky, jumpy.
Yeah, they figured, hey, this will be standard operating procedures. We'll get our money in a few months. They'll leave us alone. Well, not this time. Let's. So you've got we're back and tracking a little bit, but you've got the crew locked away in the engine room. You're trying to de-escalate on the bridge, and just from there to the point where you find yourself on a lifeboat. Just the thing that's really fascinating to me in every survival situation is the mental aspect. What's going on upstairs? You're trained to do certain things. Physically, you should react to certain things. But mentally, I kind of, not to sound like it's a sofa therapy, but I just want to hear from that point where you're trying to de-escalate. And then once we get on the life raft, it's probably a whole different set of things going on upstairs. So let's talk about they're on the ship, and then to the point where you're getting ready to get into the lifeboat.
Well, it started, once they boarded, they put my third mate, my AB, under gunpoint, very threatening to him. They they wanted me to stop the engine. I'm telling them, you can't stop the engine. It stops slow. You got to go through the steps. It's automation. You can't just stop it. You can't put the brake. And they know he went over and he just stopped it. And I sort of smiled at that because that was my excuse. The next thing he wanted me to do is to call all the crew. And I called the crew over the PA and my radio, but I didn't use the non-duress password. So most of my crew knew to stay in hiding. There was one crew who came up. But most of my crew knew to stay in hiding. And then they said, where's the crew? I don't know where the crew is. I'm here with you. And then they said, make the ship go. And I can make it go. They go, make the ship go. We'll shoot you and your two crew here. I said, I can't make it go. You broke it. I had to convince them that what they did broke the ship. And, then they're wondering, why is it a lemon? Why is it a broken ship? Why is it this situation? Because now they're finding themselves in a different situation. They can't find the crew. The ship doesn't work. They can't get back to Somalia. And one of the first things they did was they wanted to go to the back phone, the satellite phone. And they gave me a number in Somalia. I know it was Somalia because the country code. And I dialed it. But, one thing, training is important. And when you use a sat phone, you got to hit the pound key at the end in order to make it through. So I do the number and they'd watch the LED. They knew I was fooling with them. And I go, look, that's a number. Look at the number. Bad cell service. And so they were sort of upset about that because I guess that was their procedure. Then they went to the radar. And they didn't really know too much about a radar, but they could see the picture. But while they were looking at the phone, I was able to switch the radar to denigrate it, so we wouldn't have seen an aircraft carrier next to us. So when they went to the radar, now his face got quizzical. I mean, you could see some worry in his face, which he didn't have previously, because he can't see the mothership. And then he went to the VHF, which is their third procedure, I guess. And he went to the talk on that, I guess, in Somalia. I don't know what kind of language. They probably spoke 3 or 4 languages. And he got no answer, and he was just quizzically. You'd see him sort of shaking his head. I see droplets of sweat start coming out. Before he got to the VHF, I was able to switch it. So from 16, the international calling and distress frequency, to some other channel, and he never got an answer. So now he's really worried. And then that's when he turned to me and stopped the ship up. I said, I can't stop the ship up. So then they're stuck, and now they go into their mode of trying to find my crew. So initially they went out to try and find my crew. They can't find anybody. And then they take me around. The first time I went with the leader, and he had his pistol. So he had his pistol beside me, but he was very concerned about getting near him. So after the second time, we came back. We didn't find anybody. And we went down again. But the second time I noticed, as we were going out the door, he slipped the gun to his guy. I think he was worried about losing the gun and giving it to us. So he didn't have anything. I could have got away then. I mean, he was a little guy. But I still have 3 guys up above at the bridge under gunpoint, so it did me no good. So we went through, and there was some humor to the situation. One time I went down with a taller pirates going through the ship trying to find things. I say, hey, you guys thirsty? Come on, we'll get some juice. Come on, we got plenty of juice. We got bacon. We got food. And so we would bring them up. We're all bringing up food, and they got their AK-47 under their thing. They got a bag full of food, and he drops a bunch of stuff. And I go, hey, you want me to carry that gun for you? And he just sort of smiles at me. We laughed, and we continued up the stairwell, the ladder well up back up to the bridge. But they were going around the ship multiple times, and they get more and more. Where's the crew? And that's what they constantly queried me. Where's the crew? Where's the crew? And my answer was always the same. I don't know where they are. I'm here with you. So that whole time, I was basically in problem-solving mode. And to be honest, that's one of the criticisms I have of myself, because I finally started letting them know, hey, I got 35 grand in my safe. I mean, you can't find my crew. You can take that boat. When we're going around the ship, they would ask me, oh, what's that boat? That a good boat? Oh, that's an excellent boat, our rescue boat. And it's got an outboard motor. It's diesel, but it's got an outboard motor. And they go, how much fuel? I go, you can go 1,000 miles on that thing. And they're looking it over, they're checking it. Don't touch that, you'll break that. And finally he lifts the back lid, and there's the 2.5 gallon tank. And he looks at me, and we just sort of smile. So then he had us go get extra fuel. So we went to the emergency generator room, and I got him some extra fuel all the time, trying to get it from the bottom, so all the gunk and the shit would all clog up. And then they made my chief mate go get him food. Once we got on rescue boat. We need food. We need more fuel. And so I said, mate, we need more fuel. We need more. So he goes, I'll get you food. And this is my chief mate. He's got a sense of humor. He went to our night lunch. It's basically our horse cock department. He went to our night lunch, got all the night lunch, which most humans won't eat. And he gave him all the pork. And so when he dropped it down, I'm laughing and he's laughing up top. And then he got his fuel. And then over the radio later, when we pulled away from the ship, he goes, "Don't worry, I put plenty of water in that fuel." I go, "Thanks, mate."
You know what?
So once we got the whole time on the ship, I was just in problem-solving mode.
No, but that's the point that is so awesome that I didn't know until I got a chance to talk to you. From the point that guy is on the bridge, you never stopped thinking, doing psychological operations, trying to take it. You were fighting the fight the whole time. Water in the fuel, sediment in the fuel, jacking with the radar. Not initiating that. You were constantly problem solving and fighting the fight, which is, I got to be honest with you, most people aren't that good in that kind of situation. I got to give you credit. I didn't know you were jacking with these guys the entire time in subtle ways, but effective ways.
Yeah. No, I thought that was important. I mean, that just stuff, I don't think you just learn that on the street. I knew I was in a diminished capacity with them with guns. So for me, I really, and people ask me, did you think about your family? Did you think about your kids? I go, no, I didn't think anything about them. My whole body, my whole mind was consumed with trying to find the solution. And that's what I talk about my problem. Once we're in the rescue boat actually broke down. But I'm still in my problem solving mode and I'm getting the tools out and I'm starting to get this thing working. What I should have done and what the SEALs told me later, had I really been thinking, I would have said, "Hey, Captain Shane, take off. You got one of the prisoners. The crew is safe. Take off. We'll just sit here and wait." And that's what I should have done. And that's the big negative I take away. I was too caught up in that. I was right down to the problem of that little motor on that little boat when the big problem was the pirates.
Well, I tell you what, just the fact that you were staying in the fight, doing everything you could, I think that is just a really good example of a great leader, because you're not, like you said, I wasn't thinking about my wife and kids. No, you've got a responsibility, and those guys are right there on your ship. And so it's a very unselfish way of dealing with a problem like that. I don't have time to think about my kids. I got enough going on right now with my crew, my other kids. Yeah. So I think it's really commendable. So you are on that lifeboat, and tell me in maybe a sentence or two, as you're pulling away and your distance from the Maersk Alabama, your ship is increasing. That had to be, I know you're still in the game, you're still fighting the fight, but that had to be kind of like a punch in the gut, like, oh crap.
Actually not. It was actually, I'm not going to say celebratory, but I was halfway there. I only had to take care of myself now. So actually it felt good. And one of the humorous things that happened then, I was the guy wanted me to show him how to operate the boat. So it's showing how to operate the boat. Well, now the Maersk is underway. We can hear the rumble of the main engine in the lifeboat. And the Maersk Alabama is underway and following us, right behind us. Captain Shane is right on my tail. And
Talk about turning the tables, huh?
Oh, yeah. Oh, the pirates were just astounded. Their mouths were down, and then they started getting scared. And they say, "He's trying to run us over." And I turn to him and I say, "Of course he's trying to run us over. He wants my job." and they were really scared. They actually put me up to steer and operate the boat.
So your change of command was going to be getting run over by the Maersk Alabama.
Yeah. And I told Shane, I say, do it.
Put me out of my misery. These guys stink.
No, because I figured, I would have a chance. I could swim. I would have a chance, but, that would end it right there. And I would have had no problem if Shane had done that.
So explain to me, you're a couple days on this lifeboat. The smells, the feeling, the fatigue, the dehydration. I mean, obviously you've been redlining for the last several days. The exhaustion is gonna kick in. I probably explained it, but I want to hear it from you.
Well, you're right. It was the adrenaline. So we would only sleep really fully from like midnight to 1 to like 5 in the morning, just before the sun came up, because that's the coolest part of the day. And we would all, it was like we were individual people. We would all just sort of sit there and just soak in the coolness because we knew what was coming, and I knew what was coming, aside from the temperature. So that was our point in the day. I think we all sort of reformed, regrouped, and got ready for the day. But it was still, conversation on that lifeboat. There was still things going on that are strange, the things that they were doing. And as I said, I could see their commitment. They weren't going to give up. I got to admire them from that. And that's one thing I talk about in the start of, when any bad thing happens, you're in a tough situation, your resolve to see it through, I think, is one of the most important things. And that's why I said, I'm going to see this through no matter how it happens. Because they also sort of pissed me off.
Well, sure. And I was going to ask you that. At one point, did you go from, I don't know how this is going to end, now I'm just freaking fed up at this point? I mean, there had to be a whole range of emotions over those days of,
Yeah.
okay, I'm a little nervous. Now I'm pissed. Okay, now I'm concerned. This is going to be fine. Oh shit,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to get out of this. Was it just a range of emotions in that?
It was mainly, I'm not going to get out of this. But I said I got to put that emotion aside. I got to take emotions out of it because I think emotions can screw you up. So I just said, hey, I'll do the best I can. You do the best you can. That's all you can do. And I still maintained. I wanted to maintain that I was still, I was not one of them. I was not a hostage. I was not a passenger. I was there. I was the other side. I wasn't with them. So I wanted to keep that maintained, and I wanted to try and keep myself as a human in front of their eyes. At one point, Saturday morning, which was late Saturday morning, was probably one of the scariest times. We heard this buzzing outside the lifeboat, and I'll tell you, it's the scariest time I think I had because I saw the fear, abject fear, in those 4 guys with guns, weapons, and all of them slink back. They would look up the window and then just slink back, waiting for an imminent attack. They tried to put a blindfold on me and put a guy with a gun to my head, the young guy, but I kept knocking them off. And, the leader would go by me, smack me in the head. I said, what are you going to do? Tie me up? What are you going to do? Shoot me? You're about to do that anyway. So I was mad, and so I just wanted to dig at them. Because they were so fearful, even though I know it was on a tight finger, I'm sure. But I could see, and they made preparations. Whenever they thought they were going to be under imminent attack, they would start taking our extra fuel buckets, turn them on the side, undo the caps so the top would be in the bottom. So if the shooting started, boom, they'd kick it. And then the first shot would have been to me. They made that perfectly clear. And then they would have, just died in the end. They were committed.
So obviously the never quit mindset, I think, helps everybody and anybody, especially in that situation. I did not realize that they had, hey, we're going to do this or die. They were like, if this goes south, we're all going to burn up here. I had no clue about that.
Yeah. And I could see that. They were very deliberate on that. The leader was very good. I had told them in the lifeboat, because it was slower then.
Sure.
On the ship, it was too busy. On the lifeboat, it just slowed down. So we had conversations. One of them, I said, you're a good leader, but you got this little Napoleon thing going on. And he never would really talk too much. He would always belittle me. He would always come down on his guys if they started talking to me too much or doing things. So I would say he was a fairly good leader. He just was in the wrong business.
So there was a point where you're just like, screw it, I'm going to start poking the bear back, because you were probably at this point several days into it where you're just like, you know what, I'm over this thing. However it ends, but I'm not going to go cowering in a corner. I'm going to keep fucking with these guys.
Yeah. I mean, it was really true. And they saw it. They did get in my head for a little while. They would go through these mock ritual executions, with a gun to my head.
Yeah.
And they just dry fire it, to get me going. And the first time they did it, I was just a trembling mess. I was just crouching. I'm waiting for the hit. I'm just, okay, let's go. And I was just trembling. Well, after they do that 4 or 5 times, near the end, the leader's giving me a hard time. You're getting in my head going, good military posture, good military posture, But we were going back and forth, on the lifeboat, their lighters died. During the time on the ship, I gave them Cokes, I gave them cigarettes. And so I'm giving a hard time. I'm telling, what are you're jonesing for that butt, huh? You'll never get that thing. You'll never have another cigarette there. How are you going to last? And they'd shut up. And so then they took the flashlight apart. They hold the cone outside. One held the cigarette, and they're trying to light it from the glass, like a magnifying glass. And I'm giving a hard time. You'll never get that lit. That's an old wives' tale. You'll never get that friggin' thing lit. And they turned to me 40 minutes later, puffing on the cigarette. They all lit their cigarettes and then just started laughing at me. And then I laughed with them, and they thought I was laughing with them, but I'm laughing because within 5 feet of me, in any emergency craft, there's always matches. I could get them to about 5 or 6 books of matches if they wanted, but that was our little combat back and forth. And in the end, the leader I really didn't like him. They stopped letting me go to the bathroom. They made me piss my pants, and the first time I really felt like an animal. I was incensed. I was swearing at him. I was cussing him. And after that, after I did it, you're already wet. And the guys didn't like the smell, and I said, well, here, have some more.
That's when you start throwing it at them.
Yeah. And by Sunday, it was really a mess, and I was actually yelling at them, and I said, you guys need to clean this place up. It stinks, and it stunk. And so they started throwing things out and trying to get in order, the lifeboat. But I always wanted to make sure that they knew I'm their adversary, I'm a human, and we're going to play it to the end. So I thought that was important. I don't know why. And the other thing, I look back, it's an irony to it, I don't know why I thought I had to sit in that third seat on the port side, 3 seats from the door. I wanted to because I thought I could be able to escape like I did the first time. Unfortunately, they caught me. But I thought I wanted to be near that door so I can be out quick. Times they moved me, and then I would just make a reason to go back to that seat. I still don't know why. It was just a talisman. I had to be in this seat. And so whenever the SEALs came by, if I wasn't sitting there, where do you sit? And if I go, this is where I sit. I sit here all the time. This is where I sit. And that's how they knew where I sat. Because for some reason, I don't know why, it just came to me in the lifeboat. I held on. Maybe it was my last straw. Or, I got to stay in this seat. And it turned out to be crucial.
That was a very, very important piece of information for those guys, as they've told me. But you touched on it. Did you realize that the cavalry was arriving in the form of the United States Navy and SEAL snipers?
Well, I saw the ships. I saw all 3 ships, and that was one of the confusion. Come Saturday, I go, where am I? In Gitmo Bay, I see 3 ships. I see Captain gigs going by. I don't know if I dreamed it. I could have sworn I saw a woman and a guy go, naval woman, officer or something in a gig go by. And I go, where the heck am I? Am I at a Navy base? And they were telling me that they work for the Navy. And also for my company, we're just checking the security. And they said, yeah, come on. After this is over, we'll take a lifeboat back down to Mombasa. You can come with us if you want. I go, yeah, I'll go down to Mombasa on a lifeboat.
That sounds like a little.
So we had a lot of.
That sounds like a little sleep deprivation and hallucination kind of thing kicking in. Is that kind of accurate?
Oh no! That conversation happened. They even asked me if I wanted to work for them. They go, they have a contract with the U.S. Navy to run a radio navigation aid in the Goa, and if I wanted to work and help them.
So you're getting a job application in the middle of all this.
Yeah. Well, and they also said that we had met before. I go, oh yeah, we met in Mombasa. We've met you before. I go, okay, I don't know. I go, where do you live? He goes, Mombasa. He lives in Mombasa. Where do you live? He goes, I live in Times Square.
Oh Christ. Well, all right.
So there was a lot of strange things they were saying.
Well, it's funny during times like this and life-threatening situations and high stress. some of the crazy comedy that can come out of that stuff. And you've touched on some of it, but just, is there something that you remember distinctly? You're like, all right, in the middle of all this, and I'm peeing my pants, and they're mock executing me. Yeah, I mean, Jesus, it sounds like The Deer Hunter, to be honest with you. You could have been De Niro, but is there that one thing that sticks in your mind? Out of all this craziness, I can't help but laugh about this.
Oh, I think if you put three girls in a limo going to the prom, there'll be relationships and talks and things happening, and there were. Another sort of funny situation was we're in the lifeboat. It was the first day, and the leader, my crew, had cut his hand when they took him as hostage. So he's complaining about his hands. You could see he was cut, not a bad cut. And they had the first aid kit, and they're sort of looking at it. They're, they don't even recognize anything that's in there. And so finally, he says, "Give me that." And I said, "Sit down." And so I sat next to the guy, and I took the first aid kit, and I got my tape out, and my Telfa pads, and then I got my tape out, and I'm starting to cut it with my jackknife. And you know how sometimes in a room you feel this change in atmosphere, a little electricity? Well, I felt that, and I looked up, and all four of us are within 3 feet. Our heads are all together as I'm taping this guy's hand, and they all look up, and I can see little blurbs coming out of their heads like a comic strip, and they all saying the same thing. "We didn't check them for a knife." So they made me, after I was done, they made me give him the knife back, but I took care of the leader's hand, because they really didn't know what to do.
Well, we'll get back to that.
Sort of, they forgot to search me.
Get back to that whole attention to detail thing. All right, my favorite part, the happy ending here. My boys were given the opportunity to be part of this, and I'm just wondering, after you hear these shots, well, first question, did you anticipate the Navy was going to do something, or did you think, oh, they'll just ride this out like normal, we'll be in Somalia? Did you think they were going to take a direct action to
I think they would take a direct action if they had a plan that they thought could work, but I was thinking, how would I get out of there? And I didn't see anything aside from me jumping out of that boat that would get me out of there. They were ready, and remember, they were tying up the dogs. So if you tried to sneak in from outside, you wouldn't have been able. They would have heard you, and you wouldn't have been able to get in. So they did have a little moat around themselves, literally, for protection from a surprise attack. So no, I didn't think. It was possible. I knew we were taken under tow, but a lot of people don't realize the pirates asked for that. Yeah, so they would be attacked by another pirate group. I was told.
Did you realize that?
And so we're taken under tow.
No, please go ahead. Sorry.
What's that?
No, go ahead. Sorry, I just had a question about that.
So they take us under tow. Okay, and I'm yelling at them. I go, "What'd you break now?" Because they were breaking things on the lifeboat. "What'd you break now? What's the problem?" They sort of yelled at me, "Shut up." And we're under tow. And no, I had no idea. And to be honest, once the shooting started, I had actually, just before the shooting, I had actually tried to jump in the water, try to get cool, something they'd been doing for 4 days, and they stopped me and they put me back in my seat, and I was just mad, I was hot, I was dirty, and I said, I'm just gonna lie down. So I turned to lie down in the middle aisle, and from outside the boat, someone had yelled out, "What's the problem in there?" Because when I was doing what I was doing, one of the pirates shot his AK. And they said, "No problem, no problem." And I was just sitting all fours facing forward, and that's when the shots rang out. And I just dove back right to my seat, hugging that deck so hard. The only thing that would have shot at me would have been my rear end. But I'm yelling out, "What the heck are you guys doing?" Because I thought it was the three pirates. That Easter Sunday was a tough Sunday. The leader went to the Bainbridge, and those two were starting to bicker, and they were starting to really get on the younger one, coming to near blows and cussing and swearing at him almost as much as me. And I thought they were finally pissed off without the leader's presence and controlling them. They were shooting at each other from each end of the lifeboat, and I'm yelling, "What the heck are you guys doing?" Well, after it stopped, got quiet, I picked my head up. I saw one of them was there. He'd been shot a couple of times. He didn't have long to live. I could tell that by the sound. And then a SEAL came through that forward hatch. and came down. And then he basically, once they undid the bindings on the dogs, he picked me up and threw me in the rib boat, like a sack of potatoes. And that, it really wasn't until I was in the boat that I realized, oh, that's the Navy. I just thought it was another crazy thing the pirates would do.
What was the first thing you said?
When I got in the boat?
Yeah, just what was the first word out of your mouth after that went down?
Some people were asking me, "You all right? You're right." I go, "I'm fine. I'm all right." And then once they got me in the Bainbridge, and that's when they got me in the Bainbridge, then helicoptered me over the Boxer. It was really there where I had a hard time standing. So I actually had to put my hand on a SEAL on his back, just so I could, because my legs weren't used to being, walking and standing like that.
Do you think you just maybe at that point you're like,
so
I'm safe, I'm safe, and I
didn't realize it till then.
Boom. Yeah.
Boom. Yeah. And then I was on the Boxer. I met some people. The first night, people asked me, "Do you sleep?" I said, "Oh, I sleep like a baby." The captain actually gave me 2 beers. I drank 1.5. Fell asleep after taking a shower and brushing my teeth. I woke up the next morning fine. And then they brought me back to the Bainbridge, and that's where I stayed till the 17th of April.
Did you ever get a chance? Did you ever get a chance, sir, to talk to the guys who pulled the trigger on that, the snipers?
I was able to go down to Dam Neck. I have been to a few functions of SEALs, and I do keep in contact every April 12th. I send a few emails and letters to some people who are important to me.
Well, I'll tell you what, as a SEAL sniper, that was a very proud day for us, with a very happy ending. So just the ability to be able to talk to you today as a result of what those 3 guys did makes me very proud.
Oh, yes. I still say today.
So after the dust settled,
Go ahead.
I mean, all the attention, and then, there was the movie and the book and the movie kind of, again, that must have been just a whole different universe from the one you were just in.
Oh, it was unbelievable. But my phone didn't ring off the hook from 6 in the morning to 10 at night for the first 3 months I was home. Right. It was a world I was not used to. I did not want to be part of. The media, I am a big news hound. I like to keep on top of the news, but I don't believe much anymore after my incident. The media cares more about deadlines than accuracy. So for me, it was a steep learning curve there. My poor wife had to put up with more than I did. I had 4 pirates. She had the whole media. When I got home, 5 days later, I had 6 satellite trucks in my yard, 1 connected to my house. So it was a little strange when I got home, because I was completely ignorant of the media blitz that was out there. I knew nothing of it. I didn't know I was even in the news until the morning after I was rescued. I was in having a cup of coffee and half a bagel, and the TV comes on, and it's my neighbor, Paige. And she's talking about it, and I go, oh, geez, I just got up. I turn around, I go to the other side, and a couple of guys were there, and they go, "Don't you want to watch that?" I go, "No." I've had enough of it.
Yeah, and then fast forward, you're kind of neck deep in the Hollywood experience. Tell me about that.
That was different too. I actually had an agent, a lawyer,
good,
to do all that bidding. I hired someone myself just to handle that media world, because I didn't want to deal with it. It was just, I didn't know the industry. I don't know the business, so. And one thing that really, really helped me is something the SEALs told me, because I spent 5 days with the SEALs on the Bainbridge after that, because we went to save another American ship that was under attack by pirates. And one thing the SEALs, he gave me a couple words of advice, and I used all 3 of them. But one thing that I really helped me, and I would give it to anybody who's in a situation that puts them out there. Wait a month before you make any kind of decision. I mean, and that was some of the best advice I got, and that's what I did. I said I didn't turn down anything, I didn't do anything, but I would consider anything, and then in a month I make that decision. I think that's one of the best advice that I got.
Well, you know what, the best piece of advice I ever got as a young platoon commander was, if you have time, take it, because that's a luxury. And if you don't, okay, do what you have to do. But if you have the time, take the time. So I guess maybe we got the same advice from the same guy.
Yeah, yeah. And it's one thing I've always believed. People ask, has my life changed or my outlook? I mean, I've always known it was, life is fragile. Anything can happen at any time. And you got to take the time to enjoy it. So I've always, had that. Belief, but it did reinstill in me. Time is more important than money. That's I've always believed that, and the time you have is so much more valuable. I didn't go to sea to make money. I went to sea because I love that life and what it helped me do and the opportunities for my family that it gave me. And just like after my experience, I took advantage of some of the opportunities that would help me support my family.
But now that you're retired, do you miss anything about that world? Do you miss being at sea, or you're like, you know what? I checked that box and I got kidnapped.
I said I did miss it. I retired 5 years ago, so it's been 5 years. And I said, I miss some of the people I work with. Some of the people, and especially, I really enjoy looking back and looking at how many people were my chief mates who are now sailing captain, who are better captains than I was. And that's what I take away from it. I mean, I work with these very intelligent, capable guys, and look where they are. And I know they're better captains than me, but I think that's one of the things you have to do in life and in the merchant marine. You got to find your replacement. Who's going to take on after you? You got to have somebody ready to step up. So that's one of the things I take away from it, that I helped other guys, advance. But I would say it's the people. Now, I was able to help a guy take a boat back to Miami from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. And I was out to sea for the first time since 5 years. And I learned I did miss it. I like being at sea. It is a place that, for me, is quiet waters, even though there's turbulent times.
Sure. Is there any advice you'd give somebody who's maybe just graduating from the merchant marine and they're getting ready to go out there into the fleet? What would you tell them?
Oh, I would say do everything you can. Do not limit yourself to anything. Do things that are below you. Do things that are above you. Watch the guys who's in front of you, and watch the guys who's behind you. I've always said, you should always take something from everyone you work with, or get to know better, to put in your toolbox, whether it be negative or positive. I mean, there's something we learn from everyone. So the people I work for, I would take what I considered their good trait. Oh, I like that. I like that part. And I would use that in my toolbox. So, and as I said, it wasn't me trying to get up there. It was people saw something in me. So I would just try and do anything I could. I don't care who was greasing. I didn't care who was paying. I sailed AB when I had a second mate's license because I had a tough time getting a job. I didn't care. I would do whatever I had to do because that helped me learn things. And that's one thing I liked. It's not all office work. It's not all brain work. There is some physical activity to it. There is being outdoors. It's a challenge every day. Every day is different. So I would say be open and do everything you can. Don't limit yourself, and learn from the people under you, because a lot of them have been doing it for a little while. And as I said, as I sailed as an AB, an unlicensed person, I learned a lot how to treat people also under you. You can be tough, but it's important to be fair, and you got to forgive.
Yeah, and respect is earned, right? Especially in that situation.
And respect is earned. I wasn't very well liked by a lot of my crews, to be honest. I was a pain in the ass. Yeah. Drills, working, I believe there's an 8-hour workday, and we worked 8 hours, but I always believed in that. And probably the biggest compliment I've ever gotten from someone who's worked for me was from a bosun, who's, basically the big balls of the unlicensed. He makes things go, the bosun. And I worked with him on 3 ships together. And he goes, Cap, I like working with you because I already know what you're going to say. And he was able to predict things. I go, great. Then, that really, to me, was a compliment, because he knew exactly what I wanted, and he wanted to give me what I wanted. And I go, well, I can't ask for anything better than that. Let me know when you're done.
Well, if I have to choose between respected or popular, I'll take respected any day of the week. So good on you, Cap. I appreciate it. Well, sir, I want to thank you so much for spending the time. There's so much I learned over the last hour that I had no idea about. And I want to go ahead and wish you an early happy birthday tomorrow. 35, huh, sir?
Oh, 35 years. 35 leap years.
I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for spending this time with us, sir. Enlightening. It's been great. And you are a true survivor. You live to see another day. So congratulations on everything you do. And again, most impressed that you stayed in the fight the whole time. You never quit.
Well, it's one thing I remind people, my life was involved too. So, it wasn't just altruistic meetings there. I was involved in that. So for me, there was no choice. You play the game, you win or lose. That's it. But the one thing I take away from it, and it's the one thing that I've talked with people who've been in very tough situations, kids with cancer, 9/11, Afghanistan, Iraq. They say, I wouldn't want anybody to go through what I went through. But I'm glad I went through it because I learned a lot about me. And I think that's very true. When we go through tough times, we will come out the other end stronger. And that's one thing we all have to remember, especially times like this. We're all stronger than we know. We can do more and we can take more. The strength, it's already within us. And if we work together, we can accomplish so much more, the sum being greater than the parts.
Well, Captain Rich Phillips, I couldn't have said any better, and we'll leave it at that. Again, thank you so much. I hope you have a great birthday tomorrow. Hey, folks, I want to thank you all for listening to Can You Survive This podcast. Please share the show with friends, family, coworkers, anyone that you care about, and subscribe and listen for free on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. It could be the most important entertainment decision of your life. Will you be a survivor or a statistic? Thank you again, sir. This is Cade out. Can You Survive This podcast is a Cavalry audio production, recorded live from the bunker in Denver, Colorado. Hosted by me, Cade Courtley. Produced by Brandon Morgan and Cade Courtley. Associate producer is Jeff Apple. Executive produced by Keegan Rosenberger and Dana Brunetti. When the public health crisis known as COVID-19 hit our nation back in March, the Gary Sinise Foundation mobilized quickly to launch the Emergency COVID-19 Combat Service. This national campaign supports medical professionals, first responders, service members, veterans, and all of those who so courageously stand on the front lines of this global pandemic. Whether they are providing critical PPE to first responders, care packages to our military service members, or meals to medical professionals and hospitals, this campaign is an extension of the Gary Sinise Foundation's mission to honor those who so bravely protect our nation. Support our heroes today at GarySiniseFoundation.org.